Welcome to Deal Talk. Today you're going to meet Joe Robertson. You're going to get actionable tips on AI and also maybe a bit of negotiation as well. That way you can negotiate faster and smarter, and also just learn more about what AI is and how you can specifically leverage it. So Joe and I's goal of today's conversation is to equip you with something new knowledge to challenge you, to push you to where you want to go. So if this is your first show or your 50th show, I'm Shane. I'm the founder of Mediation Table, where we're using AI to cut conflicts from months to minutes. I'm also a mediator and a graduate of the Harvard program on negotiation, but most importantly, your host. And Joe, you're going to meet Joe. Joe works with brands in procurement and sourcing. He's got customers in tech, finance, transportation on behalf of Robertson Marketing, but also Joe is a startup founder as well. That is an incredibly unique application of AI. And he's going to share with you today how you can specifically leverage AI in your day-to-day. So in addition to that, he runs strategy on business development and also AI at Robertson Marketing. So Joe, welcome to Deal Talk. To kick us off, what are the 3 top ways you recommend someone can leverage AI?
Yeah, Shane, thanks for having me. Happy to be on here. And yeah, as far as AI, the way that we view it at Robertson, there's kind of 3 primary ways that you can leverage it. The first being efficiency. So getting rid of or automating kind of really repetitive tasks, some day-to-day things. Probably the easiest example of that would be automating specific communication channels. Secondly, we view it through personalization. AI is very unique in the fact that it can really make sense of really large data and also very specific individual data. So being able to personalize things from customer support to content is a huge one. And then lastly, creativity, being able to iterate on new concepts faster and just come up with really unique solutions for customers and also internally.
Yeah, I love it. There's so many different applications. That personalization piece is super interesting. And it seems like as more time passes, as AI gets better, we're going to see that personalization quality increase as well, depending on the application. But as we get into AI, I want people to get to know you a little bit. You have an awesome story. You've started a company. It seems like you're leading multiple different things. You have a background at Duke. You played lacrosse professionally. Now you're diving deep into AI, marketing, business development, and how all those things connect. Like, walk people through briefly your story and who you are.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, did my undergrad and grad school at Duke University. During my time there, I was a varsity athlete playing for the men's lacrosse team, and have kind of a unique story surrounding an application that I built. I injured my knee, tore my ACL my junior year, about 3 weeks after my surgeries when COVID hit and all the healthcare facilities shut down. So had to do 90% of my physical therapy at home by myself. I was constantly worried about my progress and where I was at. And so wanted to think of a way to use technology to better track my progress. And I ended up building out a computer vision solution to basically be able to track human movement from any mobile device, to be able to track your rehabilitation progress. I spent the next year studying computer vision and healthcare at Duke and working on the project. And that has since spun off into a couple different ways, one of which in the primary with kind of helping health and wellness groups at larger employers kind of reinforce different employee health initiatives, track progress on things like injury prevention or return to work progress. And we tie in nicely with Robertson Marketing as a strategic partner to help basically power that health and wellness initiative. So Robertson Marketing, I help lead the AI strategy and business development side, both internally and externally. Just as a bit of background about Robertson Marketing, Robertson Marketing helps companies build and manage global swag programs like corporate branded merchandise. So we offer turnkey solutions from building online solutions to support swag programs, recognition programs, and other employee initiatives like health and wellness initiatives. We also support live events, do warehousing and distribution, and have offices around the world to support EMEA, APAC, and the US. So we work with some of the biggest and best companies in tech, financial services, and communication. And so through both of those, have quite a bit on my plate, but it's been fun.
Yeah, man. Where does that hunger to learn and grow come from, you think? Maybe a parent, or where does your
I th-
drive come from, man?
yeah, I think it's from my parents for sure. My mom never sleeps; she's always up working on something. And my dad is a very hard worker, and kind of instilled that in me and my brothers from an early age. And so I think coming from an athletic background where put in countless hours dedicated to a sport growing up, and even into college and a bit professionally, I think that it somewhat becomes a bit of nature about yourself. And so always love learning, always love building, being creative, and new technology especially.
Yeah, and the new technology that you're talking about is changing so fast. Like if you're not working hard or if you're not putting in the time to read or educate yourself, 6 months goes by and it's almost like you're already being left behind, especially in marketing. I feel like things are constantly evolving. There's constant innovation in marketing. A fun, interesting, dynamic space, but at the same time, that requires you having to be in the fold. You have to know what's going on. You have to be able to innovate. So I love that your drive comes from your parents. I have a similar sort of story. Both parents worked, had to like kind of not grow up alone, but like my sister was 6 years older, so I was alone a lot. And what I did was just played sports or played baseball after school, just to like pass the time. And like athletics is such a great segue, I believe, into business, especially sales, because you have to be disciplined to be the best. Like there's no shortcuts. And I think the same thing applies to AI now. So, okay, so you went to Duke, um, undergrad, grad. You played lacrosse professionally for a little bit. You've got this cool startup that you built out of a genuine need for and your own injury that you had. You're doing marketing, you're doing sales, doing all kinds of things at Robertson. Let's talk about the AI piece because you shared something with me about how only 33% of consumers believe that they're using AI, but the reality is they're using AI 77% of the time. Can you share some real life basic applications for someone who's trying to learn about AI but doesn't know exactly what it is? Like, what is it and like how does it show up in real life?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that over the past kind of 2 years, or year and a half, I guess, AI has really come onto the scene. A lot of that is largely due to OpenAI releasing ChatGPT and kind of the floodgates opening up. And I think that was the first time that really consumer facing AI technology was released in a way that consumers could really understand the power of what AI is and kind of how it works. But in reality, AI has been around for a really long time. It's tied into nearly every product that consumers use, whether it be helping fix your grammar, or talking to Siri, or the early innings of self-driving cars. Those are all examples and subsets of AI. And the actual true definition of AI is very very up for grabs right now because of how fast things are progressing. So you'll hear a lot of talk around AGI, which is artificial general intelligence. Basically, what that means is an AI system, which is basically an algorithm that can do tasks equally, if not better, than humans. And that's most tasks. So it's not one specific task, but it can write an email for you, and it can also answer a phone call. Where AI has primarily been before, ChatGPT was more in kind of a narrow state of AI, meaning it was focused specifically on one task. So a good example of that would be Grammarly. Grammarly is very specific. They use natural language processing to basically be able to refine your sentences and your grammar for when you're writing a paper, an email, or other sorts of content. But it can only really work on writing and your grammar. It's not going to answer a phone call for you, or it's not going to go put together a list of people to contact for sales. It's really specific and narrow to that use case. And so what you're seeing with ChatGPT and Gemini and all these other great AI companies out there is that these more kind of general consumer friendly platforms that are coming out have a lot of utility outside of one specific task. And so I think that's where a lot of the excitement is coming. And a lot of people think that it will, AI is going to take away people's jobs and things like that, which is very true and valid. But it's also going to create jobs, and reports actually show that it will create a net gain of 12 million jobs. And if you look at other technology that has come along in the past, from the Industrial Revolution all the way forward, revenue and salaries have actually grown over time with new technology. So I think it will be, people's jobs will change, certain jobs will go away, but new jobs will be created as a result.
Yeah, I mean, like you kind of hinted at it. Like, think about the industrial age where people thought that their jobs would, disappear, but actually it created new jobs, and salaries, at least in the United States, increased as well. I love that that you use the Grammarly example as well. It's like, it's interesting because AI has been around for decades, but it seems like now it's on the forefront. We're in this Gartner talks about like the hype cycle. It seems like we're at like maybe the peak or approaching the peak of like everyone being so excited about it. And it's exciting. It is exciting. But for people who are, yeah, who are still trying to get a grasp, like for you personally, what are you excited to build, or just in general, what are you excited about related to AI?
Yeah, so I think what excites me the most is how all these technologies will tie in together. So at the moment, and it's still in the very early innings, a lot of the AI consumer kind of platforms are kind of one-dimensional, so to say. They can do a lot of different things. You can have the AI, write you an email or format, something into a PowerPoint or whatever. But eventually, all of these different AI tools will be connected to each other. So you do have companies that are still very narrow focused and focusing, like in Grammarly's case, just on grammar. So you have AI companies that are focused on building out text to video. So you type in, what type of video you want to create, and the AI automatically creates a new video for you based on your description. And so I think what you'll see over time is a lot of these AI solutions, whether they're specific to video or audio or just text or different tasks, they'll all start to collaborate with each other. Now, how that plays out in the long run, I'm not sure from a technical standpoint, but they will kind of all start to converge on each other, which I think is very interesting. And within the next year and a half specifically, I think what you'll hear a lot of the buzz around is what's called multimodal AI, which basically means there's different modalities or ways to interact with AI. So the most common that people probably know of today with the introduction of large language models is text. So you're kind of typing in an answer and you get an answer back with a chat bot. But what's cool is you can also speak to an AI. So you have audio. You can also do visual, so you can get images back. You can even have things that can smell, that can taste. So you're seeing a lot of these different AIs come together, where maybe you have a phone AI that answers your phone, takes down a customer's details, and then it works with the text AI to send you an email of what that information is, and then you work with a image AI that creates a PowerPoint for the meeting with that individual. So you'll kind of see all these things start to to work together and different modalities.
Yeah, I mean, and think about the applications. Maybe this is why Jamie Dimon said this past week that AI is just extraordinary, is how like he described it. And I think also think about Sam Altman talking about the founder of one of the founders of OpenAI, talking about how AI is likely going to create the first one-person billion-dollar company because you're having these agents answer the phone, process an order, ship out the merchandise, get customer feedback. It's like it's amazing how they can all be connected. So for you, like where do you like would you consider yourself like you're an AI tech person? Or do you consider yourself an AI marketer? Like who exactly where do you gonna like where are you gonna fit into all this? What do you envision for yourself in the next like where you're gonna file into all this? Do you want to do it all? What's kind of interesting to you?
Yeah, I'm not sure I have a specific category or title at the moment, which I kind of like, but I really enjoy building and working with these solutions. And so not only kind of trying to build and fine tune different models, but also trying to figure out ways to hook up different models for different solutions, whether it be internally or externally for other customers. So um, I think that if I can stay around that space of building and more on the product side, that's where I'd like to be.
That's awesome. Um, how do you think AI can be used for communication or negotiations?
Yeah, so there's a ton of different ways. I think that from probably the simplest explanation from like a communication standpoint is something that is a good example of how we're using it at Robertson. So we, like I mentioned, we have a thesis around three ways you can leverage AI. So efficiency, personalization, and creativity. And so this one ties in a bit to the efficiency and personalization, but we've got some different systems in place and are working to train employees at the moment to use these systems better, to basically be able to almost standardize kind of the corporate messaging and kind of brand feel to our customer support and other kind of marketing communications. So that would be anything from, you can think of it as an example. If you're responding to customer support, you want to have and make sure everyone is responding in a very similar, appropriate, professional way. And so you can actually really leverage AI to not only speed that up and help, give you suggestions, things like that, but also make sure that the tone across the organization is set in a way that you want it to be so that you are conveying yourself with the culture and kind of the persona that you want for your employees.
Yeah, I mean, it's incredible because think about the bridges you could connect. You talked about cultures. Like, think about so much miscommunication, so much conflict is rooted in us not understanding one another. So imagine an AI being able to help you bridge that gap or connect. It's connecting AIs to AIs, but like, what does a world look like for AIs to connect people to people? Like what does it look like to bridge that gap from someone who's let's say from the Netherlands in a difficult conversation with someone who's in Sweden? They're different countries, different cultures. How can they come together to, or let's say the Sweden person has AI helping them figure out how to more effectively be persuasive with someone who's in the Netherlands. It's so fascinating. And I think it starts with what you're talking about. It starts with just like one application and then figuring out like what else is next, like what else can come. And so yeah, I'm glad that you guys are boiling it down and like keeping it simple at Robertson. So back to your startup, like are you actively involved, like are you doing that like half the week? Are you doing it like what, take us through like the startup and also like share with the audience what it is and maybe like what support you might need for it to move it forward if you need any.
Yeah, so Revenite is a very cool application. We support customers across the healthcare and kind of athletic industry, as well as, or I guess sports medicine, you could call it, as well as employers, primarily more industrial employers. So any company that has a labor force that is kind of physically demanding, so manufacturing, transportation, logistics, companies like that. And so where we help out with them is being able to really efficiently analyze their employees' movements for risks of musculoskeletal disorders or potential injuries, and then be able to basically generate insights from that, as well as recommend potential injury prevention plans and strategies. And so from that standpoint, that's kind of where, again, we tie in with Robertson. So we hook up with their recognition platforms and employee initiative solutions to be able to offer an innovative solution for, identifying potential injuries at risk and help them hopefully, reduce their healthcare spend and have a healthy, happy, productive workforce. But then use the Robertson piece of tying it in with initiatives to basically drive the culture and the human behavior towards really buying into the product and all sorts of things. So that's a good example of like kind of leveraging the AI alongside of different use cases from our standpoint.
It's awesome. It's interesting, like as the technology, as it relates to sports medicine, like as the AI technology improves, you're also going to see human performance likely improve as well. You're going to see maybe faster recovery times or an Aaron Rodgers like recovery from the leg injury that he had, where he's coming back faster than ever using leveraging technology, leveraging different types of medicines. I even think about at the NFL Combine this past year, the receiver running like a 4.2 40, like people are even getting faster. And maybe it's because they're recovering quicker, or maybe it's because they're leveraging more analytics. I think about like baseball as well, how it's the last 5, 10 years has become such an analytical sort of sport because of AI. So there's like massive implications for what we're talking about. And we're only like scratching the surface. That's the thing. Like there's so much deep, there's so much, it's so rich. Like, what do you think? Why do you feel people are fearful of AI, and maybe why shouldn't they be?
Um, well, I think AI is, I think the fear of AI is probably rooted in science fiction, from movies like The Terminator or Age of Ultron, if you're a Marvel fan, other things, other kind of entertainment and sci-fi films. I do think I do think there is risk with AI for sure. Put that out there, but I think that it is much less than people think. I think we're progressing very quickly at the moment, but I'm not sure that the rate at which we're progressing, I'm not sure that it's going to become like an existential threat anytime soon. And I also think there's a lot of ways to curb it. So from kind of that existential threat standpoint, I think it's rooted in sci-fi, but I don't think that it is actually going to be a reality. As far as other kind of common perceptions, the most is just jobs. So people are afraid of losing their job to a AI or a robot, which is definitely a valid concern. But it's the same thing with any technology. Back in the day when the bicycle came out, people wanted to ban the bicycle. And that's a great example of just the average consumer and their kind of reluctance to accept and adopt new technology. Whereas, today, if we, heard someone wanting to ban the bicycle, we'd call them crazy. So I think it's more of a time thing than anything. But I don't think that people should fear it, because at the end of the day, a lot of the tasks and things that you hate doing at your job right now are going to be removed, and you'll really get to spend the time doing what you love. And at Robertson, that is kind of our core thesis around AI internally, is we want to help leverage it. We want to help our employees all leverage AI so that they can do what they and focus on what they love most about their job. they don't have, we don't want them sitting there and working on a spreadsheet for 8 hours a day, and really not liking themselves for that, because we can automate that soon. So I think that the biggest benefit will be allowing people to really focus on things that they love doing and things that they're great at. And some things AI will not be able to replace from a human standpoint, and those things will become even more important as the technology progresses.
Yeah, what do you think will never be replaced?
Um, I think I think general human intuition and kind of gut feeling. I think that would be extremely hard to replicate. Um, and I think that from a creativity standpoint, at least in the time being, there's specific limitations. Um, and I think long term, there will likely still be specific limitations to creativity. And I think that one of the biggest strengths when you're using AI, and that will continue to be important for people as they're looking to develop and refine skills to better take advantage of this technology, really is communication. Because at the end of the day, you're going to need to be able to communicate with these systems, and the better that you communicate with them, the better that they will communicate with you. And so, if you give it, a good example is if you give it if you're talking to a chatbot and you say, "Hey, write me an email for a sales email," it'll give you a really generic sales email. But if you say, "Hey, write me a sales email for this company. I want it tailored at this, person. Here's their title. Here's what I want the email about. Give me 3 bullet points," and you're very specific and clear and communicative about what you want it to be, it's going to give you a great result. So,
Yeah, there's a kind of a theme in what we're talking about. It's like communication. I think about like AI powered communication tools or chatbots. Like there was one really interesting case study that came out maybe over a month ago, where this company basically saved $40 million because they built their own in-house AI chatbot to resolve disputes faster and also with more efficiency. And also people liked the experience more than interacting with a human. It's but at the same time, it still has limitations. Like, for example, I was trying to get information about a product yesterday. And so I started talking to their AI chatbot, and the responses from the bot were like, you could tell it was GPT, it was using these same words like unlock or, unleash, like these weird words that come up time and time again. And of course, like in your prompts, you can filter those words out so they don't come up, but you just have to have a really detailed prompt. Like this is what I tell negotiators all the time who are using AI to get ready for their heist, like any type of negotiation really, is like the better input that you have, the better output you're going to get as well. It seems to be like kind of the golden rule for these like single modal sort of AIs right now. But it's crazy where we're headed. I feel like there's so many applications. It's like figuring out which one is actually going to solve a valuable problem, because the bigger the problem that you solve, usually the bigger type of business you can build if that's what you want to do. So it's just an interesting world, don't you think?
yeah, no, it is certainly interesting, and I think one of the biggest, or like the power of the AI that we're seeing today, is that the AI now has context. So previously, with very narrow AI, so we'll go back to the Grammarly example. It doesn't really have. It basically was built on examples of really good, what really good grammar is, and at the end of the day, when you train something like that, it comes down to numbers and data and things like that. So it doesn't really understand necessarily what the sentence means, but more so understands the pattern of what a correct sentence should be based on the data. And so what you're seeing with some of these large language models is they actually have context and they have the ability to learn. So you can say, "Hey, my name is Joe," and it says, "Hello, Joe, how are you doing?" And then I say, "Hey, can you write me a quick email? Here's what I want." And it gives me back the email. And then the third question, I say, "Hey, what's my name?" And it says, "Your name is Joe." So it's able to understand and learn in the short term. and have some context. And so I think with that, one of the cool ways that we're viewing it, and I think will be useful for the audience, is within RFPs. So a lot of times, or I guess the developments within RFPs have been, and crafting them at least, have been kind of following a specific set of like questions or answers that you want, and it kind of builds you, or you maybe have your own system, but they're very kind of generic standard questions. But what AI will allow you to do in this space, and there's many different companies that I'm sure are tackling this, is it will allow you to ask the beautiful questions. So the beautiful questions being the one or two questions that are really truly unique to your company and the problem or thing that you're going out to tackle within that RFP, or any other initiative really. So the questions won't be generic. It will know, it knows information about your company, about the project you're trying to do, about the specific vendors that you're searching for, about what your budget is. And so it's able to craft, instead of, boilerplate language, it's able to craft really, really beautiful questions.
Yeah, man, you mentioned the information about the company. Isn't it wild how, like, if you take away anything listening about AI, like, take away the fact that it improves over time. So, like, you used a great simple example, which I love. Like, you're good at explaining these complex things and making them like simple. Like, it recognizes your name, and then you ask it, "What's my name?" and it says your name. It's so interesting. And I want to ask you for a bit of advice. So you said like information about the company can help you craft questions for an RFP. There's got to be companies out there tackling. I've always like sort of ran away from the three letters RFP because I've just been burned so many times by spending hours and hours and hours putting together an RFP for literally nothing, for $0. It's terrible. But I imagine winning one is probably awesome. But I've lost so many because people just come in at like, a quarter of the price for the same, it's crazy. But yeah, there's massive disruption in the procurement space right now with AI. There's really cool companies that are popping up. So I've been talking, so I haven't shared this publicly, but it makes it the context fits really well. So this summer, I've got a couple months break in my MBA program. And so I've been talking with companies, specifically negotiation teams at like the big name tech companies. And I've been talking to them about how to leverage information from past negotiations or just information about their company to help their negotiators find more leverage in negotiations to capture more savings in these like 10, 20, $300 million sort of uh, negotiations, these really complex negotiations. And the challenges is like none are the same. They're all different. I got to imagine there's patterns, especially if you can take in data from past successful negotiations. But I wanted to get your advice on what could I build? What do you feel like these people need to solve that problem of like not having any leverage in a high stakes sort of negotiation like that? Does anything come to mind from a product standpoint, since I know that's what you're really into?
Yeah, I think I mean, I think at a high level, if we go back um, to the RFP standpoint, which somewhat ties into your question, more so um, from you know responding or filling out an RFP as opposed to creating one, which I was talking about earlier. But it works both ways, right? So you may be able to, maybe the person who puts together the RFP uses some sort of AI technology to really craft a personalized RFP for that company, their specific initiatives, things like that. You receive that, and potentially what you could have is some sort of AI software on your end that has context about who you are, the company you work for, your title, maybe previous deals you've done, maybe some of your leverage points as a company or as a group, whether it's budget or other certain items, um, and be able to have that data and reference it against the RFP data. So you kind of take them and mash them together so that it has context about you and about the company and the RFP and any other things. And then you could actually kind of work with it to um, create a specific framework to find out different um, you know, different leverage points within the RFP. So you could say, and maybe that's where it comes back to having your own, and this is where the human process is important. The AI maybe is not specialized. They're very good at figuring out those leverage points on its own. But if you have a system that you use already when you're viewing these types of deals or things, you could actually walk the AI through it like, hey, here's how I think about this. I typically look for this thing, and this thing. Um, can you please go through, given your context about me, my division, my company, and this RFP and this company, and can you please, go through my process and find those things out? So that's very high level idea of like where I think something like this could be of impact. There's a million different ways you could build that into a specific solution or product. Um, but more generally, that's kind of the concept, I think.
Yeah, and even building on that, I think about like contracts, how lawyers or negotiators spend like hours and hours and hours redlining different contracts. But imagine you have an AI to help you craft a more synchronized, collaborative contract that's also more persuasive as well. How much time that could save you, it's mind blowing. It's Yeah, so I liked what you said. It's kind of like it actually works really well with what you're describing, like these different sort of AIs sort of connecting and working together. In the same way, like you're describing using like you're bringing together different processes and you're analyzing the different processes of whatever you're trying to complete and you're connecting them. And then there's an output to help you perform better, or there's a better output. Man, you're right. There's so many, you've got my mind wandering now.
Yeah, it's there's a lot to take in and there's a lot of different ways to do it, which is cool. So but yeah, from the legal standpoint, there's actually a really cool company called Harvey. And they're basically building or using generative AI for law firms and helping them do things like automate redlining and create contracts and all sorts of stuff. So definitely a lot of innovation on like the contract front as well.
Yeah, Harvey, generative AI for elite law firms. Is that the one?
Yep.
And they've got cool branding as well. It's so interesting. Yeah, especially I think about law. We're gonna see law, a lot of disruption, insurance, a lot of disruption, brutal. And then also probably banking as well. Thinking about like detecting threats. We're also seeing it, you mentioned the healthcare space, like how it's helping detect cancer better than a radiologist. It's just, man, this is like life changing. This is what a great time to be born, just in civilization in general. The fact that we are even, we're in the United States, but the fact that we're even like able to be alive at a time like this is, man, we can't waste it. We can't waste it. And so if people if people want to learn about AI, what are some like what do they do? Where do they go?
Yeah. So the good news is that like everyone it's getting so much easier to learn AI. And a lot of people are typically within AI you see or traditionally you would see anyone who really kind of knows or works in AI has years of education and probably a PhD, and has been working in the field for 10 to 20, maybe longer. And so what you're seeing though is that a lot of this information is being open source. There's a lot of large movements from great companies like Google, who have free courses online surrounding different types of AI and different ways to interact with AI, whether you're, an intro to AI or you're trying to learn more specifics. They have pretty much all of that covered. And so I think that's the really cool thing is you're seeing even like college graduates who are fresh out who maybe don't have the experience that a 25-year PhD has, but they're coming out and building applications and models from scratch, better, or if not right at the same level with some of the top competing companies and the behemoths and the industry. So that's the good news, is that it's getting really easy. So I would recommend checking out, I think it's called Google for AI. I can send you a link, and I can send you a couple other resources as well.
Google for AI. Very cool. Yeah, there's a lot of resources. Like honestly, go to YouTube. But even if you want to take it to the next level, like go work at a startup that's building something related to AI. Like startups, that's one of the best decisions I've made in my life, was starting a startup, but also just because you learn so much faster than working like a 9 to 5 at a consulting firm, where obviously you can learn so much either way. But like there's something about startups that you got to wear 10 different hats. Like and if you want to really get into this, like popping in and or even consulting for or supporting or even working at a company that's building AI. I mean, man, yeah, but
Yeah, I think
YouTube, yeah,
yeah, I think YouTube is great. And there's so many different content platforms that have great resources. So definitely follow them. And I think for the audience listeners, I would recommend, certain companies have restrictions with and certain security and technical compliance regulations in their company when trying to work with these different AI solutions, and really any new technology typically. So what I would recommend is, before maybe going through the lengthy process of introducing or trying to get an AI solution approved, try to use it in your personal life. Help it manage your kid's schedule, help it create an image for your daughter's birthday, or write an email to a friend you haven't talked to in a while, or all sorts of stuff that you can do from, a day-to-day perspective. And it'll start to give you an understanding of how it can impact the different, job and different things that might be beneficial.
yeah, right on. That's some of the best things ever created are things that are started small and then they just grow over time. They grow over time, just like AI, just like your company. Just it's just like a principle of life. So, Joe, how can people connect with you, support you, with what you have coming down the pipe the rest of the year?
Yeah, I'd say if you're interested in learning about AI and some of the technologies and other solutions that we're leveraging at Robertson Marketing, definitely reach out. I think my email will be in the description. Shoot that to you. And yeah, I think just reach out if you're interested in that, or if you're interested in any type of initiative, employee initiatives or recognition programs, that and some different ways we're leveraging AI within those. And then from the Revenite, my startup perspective, if anyone's interested in learning more, if you're a company out there that has challenges with musculoskeletal injuries and are looking for innovative solutions to save money, definitely reach out.
Love it. Yes, Joe, we'll throw your email and also your LinkedIn in the show notes. And so cool having this conversation with you, about AI. I feel like it's not being had enough, but there's so much opportunity, there's so much potential here. And so, yeah, if you're listening, take maybe a suggestion that Joe had today, or even an adjacent idea to what he mentioned, and apply it to your life. And we'll catch you in the next episode. Peace.